But let's talk first about Donald Trump's surge. The Daily Mail says Trump orders immediate surge of hundreds of feds into Chicago, calling it a violence-scarred disaster. Then threatens to order them into other Democratic-controlled cities, including Detroit and Philadelphia, over mayor's objections. Well, we do have this other story about a dozen plus mayors saying no and demanding a withdrawal of federal forces. But at least in the context of this story, that's basically it. So what are they doing? They're doing FBI, DEA, and ATF agents, and they're going to be taking on gun crime. Now, Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot tweeted she won't let federal troops terrorize the city, but she says she spoke to a U.S. attorney who told her FBI, DEA, and ATF would come to assist the city's anti-crime fight, which she supports. All right, hey, there you go.
So she...
Public versus private.
Right, yeah, there it is.
Donald Trump is the worst. It's what you guys are coming to help. That's really great. Thank you so much. Oh, they're terrible. These people are. I'm really excited for your cooperation.
Gotta save face,
nailed
man.
it.
Yeah, that's how that.
You need more bug-eyed, but
more bug.
A lot more.
fairly on point.
She went and got a haircut when the lockdown happened.
Man, her hair looks so awful.
Yeah, and everybody was like, "How come you get to have a haircut?" And she goes, "Because I'm on TV."
What?
Yeah. She was like, "Because I have to go on TV. I need a haircut."
Oh,
it's like
goodness.
other people have to go on TV too, and they need haircuts.
I think she should sleep too.
You know, this caused a huge problem for the COVID protesters because the left didn't understand the joke. When a bunch of these politicians were like, "We're locking down, but we're going to go get haircuts," a bunch of protesters started making signs saying, "I need a haircut," as a joke.
Okay.
And then the left doesn't understand sarcasm or irony,
Right.
and they literally thought people were like, "I need a haircut."
Yeah, I saw that.
This is why, listen, you can't make jokes on Twitter. You can't do it because the left doesn't understand humor at all.
That's a good point.
That's why they get offended by everything.
Well, yeah, the nuance of language. This is what I've actually talked about this at length with many friends of mine. It is like when you talk to me right now, you hear the tones that I'm giving you, right? And a lot of the issue is the people on the left are reading those jokes, I say in quotes, in their perspective, the way that they're feeling, the way that they're insecure, that their place of, zero confidence. So the way they're reading it is a direct attack, and they add those the nuance of anger and the feeling that they have, the emotional outbreak to those jokes, making those jokes a real thing in their head, and that's what it ends up being.
It's like you lack the ability to understand context.
No, it's worse than NPCs. An NPC wouldn't even think about it. They wouldn't even. It would be like I feel nothing. Right, exactly.
Rage filter.
Yeah.
It's like you say. It's really funny because I posted earlier about the riots in Minneapolis.
Okay.
This is we're going to get into in the gist of this segment. Did you know that riots and protests have been ongoing across the country for the past couple weeks? People don't know this. Like Olympia, shutting down highways in Rochester, a state of emergency in Utah, in Georgia. So I've got a bunch of these things pulled up. Did you know there's a protest camp in Philadelphia?
I didn't know that.
There is a Chaz in Philadelphia. Yeah, because the media doesn't cover the Paz.
Yeah.
Because the media doesn't cover this kind of stuff.
Yep.
But I posted earlier. So for those of you who didn't hear, there's this New York Times story that a pawn shop was torched during the riots, and they just found the corpse of a guy who was killed inside. I wonder about this. This is crazy. First of all, I don't know who this guy is. I'm sad to hear this person died, and this is a really horrific way to be burned alive in a riot. I wonder if people were, flyering. Where's, this man? Where is our loved one? Where's our brother, our father? Whoever this guy is, his name wasn't released apparently.
Yeah.
And they're walking around and they're asking, he went missing during the riots. And then it turns out he was in a building, someone torched it. Now that guy's dead. I posted that. And in line with what we were just talking about with this inability to process complex information, somebody responded with, you hate, to me, saying that I basically hated Black Lives Matter and supported police brutality. And I was like, how did you get that out of me saying it was a screenshot of the New York Times and I wrote playing for keeps. That's it.
Okay.
And the point I was making is that in these riots, people are losing their lives. This is not a game.
Absolutely.
And then I get people saying why don't you, condemn police brutality? And I was like, what does that have to do with what I just said? It's the rage filter.
Yep, exactly.
The joke is that you go on Twitter and you say something like, I like pancakes. And they go, why do you hate waffles? I didn't say that. I actually very much I prefer waffles. but I do like pancakes.
You prefer waffles? Well, what about pancakes?
I like them too.
Wait a minute.
I actually do like waffles better. You know, you get the butter right in little nooks and crannies.
I do like waffles. Waffles are good.
Like on my Eggo.
We could talk about waffles if you
Anyway,
want.
no, let's talk about Minnesota and Minneapolis, and we'll talk about the riots now. So anyway, well, that's the gist of that story. That they found a body burnt to death in the rubble.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that nightmares are made of, man.
It's terrible.
So how many people have died? It's like 28 people, I think, have died so far.
I think it's way more than that. Looking at like what's going on in New York and Chicago alone, I think it's over that number. I don't know exactly. I haven't been tallying that up because I just keep seeing death everywhere, and I'm just like, this is terrible. I keep seeing it everywhere, and it's like.
But directly from the riots,
okay,
I think it's like high 20s.
Okay.
But if you want to be fair and claim that the defund the police actions stem from all of that.
Absolutely. I think that's, of course, fair because it started from the riots, over George Floyd,
Right.
And I think.
So they cleared out the New York Chaz earlier today?
Yeah.
Pre-dawn raid.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Did you know that there was a Chaz in New York City?
I mean, I knew about it. Yeah.
The New York Times has been writing about it a bit, and they were like, it's a homeless camp now.
Yeah, that's what de Blasio said. He's like, well, there's not a lot of protesters anymore. There's more homeless than protesters, and it's like,
right.
How, was it? I don't know.
Was it ever?
Yeah.
Well, so here's what I said. With my experience from Occupy, the moment you announce you're occupying something, homeless people rush over because
Makes
safety,
sense.
Free stuff, food,
free food. Yeah.
Yeah, but safety, like protection from getting your stuff swept up, at least for the time being. So the police, so they purged this. But the question I had earlier was, when the protesters demanded a defunding of the police across this country, what has the end result been? Deaths.
More people.
Shootings.
Crime increasing, like
it's
crazy.
specifically shootings and murders because actually a lot of crime is going down. Yeah, like petty theft and violent crime is down on the whole.
Right.
But shootings and murder is way up, like hundreds of percentage points.
I would much prefer people getting, like thieves, like running amok than people dying.
I can
everywhere.
explain something very simply, though.
Please do.
One of the things I learned is really fascinating about crime rates throughout the world has to do with cell phone technology. So when I was in Sweden a couple of years ago talking about their murder rate going up, the one thing everyone liked to claim is that it's only gone up a very little bit. And, violent crime is going down across, lethal crime is going down across the board. We're only seeing a small uptick, and it's all, ultimately, things are getting better. It's not that bad. What was explained to me was something I never realized until then. The reason why lethal crime has been dropping dramatically is not because people are less violent. It's because we have cell phones. So if someone gets stabbed and you don't have a cell phone, you go, help, someone's been stabbed. You run around, try and find a phone, person dies.
Right.
Someone gets stabbed, you have a cell phone, you immediately call 911. They're there within minutes, they save the person's life. Murder becomes attempted murder or aggravated assault.
Makes sense.
So what we're seeing now in New York and all these other places, they're saying violent crime's actually going down, but murders and shootings are going up. What that means is what probably would have been a mugging has become a murder. Before the defunding of the police, when the guns were being taken off the streets, the illegal ones, that guy would probably rob someone with a punch to the face. Now that he has a weapon, he just puts a bullet through his heart.
Oh, man.
And so murders are skyrocketing and violent crime in general is going down. What it really means is crimes are becoming lethal.
They're being replaced.
I'm not saying we don't know that for a fact. It could literally be like all of a sudden all the violent criminals are like, we quit amid the pandemic. And then all of a sudden a bunch of dudes pull out guns like, let's go murdering.
I mean, did we not want to add into the fact all the people that de Blasio's letting out of the prisons everywhere or in California or all the other places where they're just releasing prisoners or getting rid of cash bail so that they come in and they go back out again right away? And it's like, do we not think about that in the democratic cities that's actually happening? So you got to add those to the statistics. It's like, that's happening.
So Trump wants to send in the troops.
I don't blame him.
I say troops, but quite literally, it's just like cops.
Yep.
It's the funniest thing about this is Trump's like, the FBI, the DEA, and the ATF are going to go assist in law enforcement. And they're like, Trump's sending in secret police. And it's like, you ever watch X-Files?
Yeah.
You know there's a thing called the FBI?
Yeah.
Did you know that they actually have offices around this country?
Whoa.
Yep.
They're in them right now.
Yeah.
Like, what are people talking
They're
about?
everywhere.
Even yeah, right. Even when it comes to like CBP and ICE and DHS and FPS, I'm like, You realize the U.S. Marshals are literally in courthouses across the country right now. I'm sorry. I'm flabbergasted because of how stupid this is.
Right.
You could literally walk up to someone and go, I need to tell you something. Right now, those secret police, they're everywhere. They're in the building now. It's
secret police.
Make people think like, did you know that these people have been occupying your city for like 20 years?
Oh my gosh.
It's not the end of the world. How about this? I've actually uncovered this really, really devastating secret.
Oh.
Yeah.
Go on.
This could change the face of this country.
Oh, man.
It could reshape Oregon as we know it.
Whoa.
A lot of people don't know this, but I'm going to tell you guys. All right, don't tell anybody. If Antifa stops going to the courthouse, the violence is over.
Wow.
Now that's powerful.
Whoa.
Imagine all of the different conflicts where they were like, we could have ended the war if you just didn't go.
It's too late. The rest of Utah, or the rest of Oregon, is already trying to secede.
Are they really?
Yeah.
They've been talking about it for a while.
No, but there's a petition now. They're all signing it, trying to leave.
For Greater Idaho.
For Greater Idaho.
Let me out! Let me out!
That's the really thing that's actually happening.
Let me show you guys some stuff.
Some things.
So first of all, we see this, right? More than a dozen mayors in Portland are joining Portland in asking Trump administration to withdraw federal forces. It's the stupidest thing in the world because feds are all over the place all the time. Whatever. Here we have this story from Shadowproof. Shadowproof is run by... There's some journalists that I've known about for a long time. I've followed. It's not like a very high-profile publication. It's very left-leaning, but that's less relevant other than I know some of the journalists who do this, and I believe while they may be biased, they're telling the truth. Philadelphia threatens protest encampment with eviction, but still has no plan for unhoused residents. You can see where their bias comes in.
Yep.
What they say is, the encampment formed June 10th to provide shelter, social support, and resources to Philadelphia's unhoused residents, many of whom have been denied access to housing and COVID protection hotels, but its existence remains threatened by the city, which is determined to remove hundreds of unhoused people to prioritize the needs of the baseball field upon which the encampment has encroached. Okay. They're saying it's a homeless encampment. Wait, make no mistake. This is a homeless encampment. This is a protest. So this is kind of like the sort of more homelessy version of the New York Chaz.
Okay.
But all of the Chazes have been homeless camps. This one specifically...
That's what it seems like.
But this one is specifically about getting them housing and stuff. Now, I want to make it very clear. I am not saying Trump needs to send in armed federal officers to clear out a homeless camp. Not at all. I think this is the kind of thing where you're like, we got to figure out how to solve this problem.
Right.
Like, where do you put these people? You can't just like... Often what they'll do is they'll just bulldoze their stuff and then be like, go away. And that's not a solution. It never has been.
Yeah, you're right.
They literally just move to another part of the city.
But I mean, neither is just giving them all a house.
Oh, of course not.
You know, that's not something that we can just do. Like, all right, well, each and every one of you now, here you go. Here's a house for each and every one of you.
I worked for...
That's not how things work.
I worked for a homeless shelter, and I'll tell you, man, these people, many of them don't want to be in houses.
That's a good point.
What people need to realize, I remember this when I used to busk, like play music in the subway in Chicago.
All right.
And the funniest thing was like I had a friend who asked me what I did, like, where are you working? And I was like, I've been busking. Like, what does that mean? I play guitar in like the subway, like a homeless person. And I was like a homeless person with a $300 fiberglass guitar and a portable amp. I was like, do you think those people are homeless? Well, I'm like, you've not seen someone perform. It's like, it's street performing. So I would do it outside of Wrigley, and it's, you make money off drunk people, you know?
Yeah.
But the one thing I realized was that people would conflate hungry and homeless. So they would be like, we need to feed the homeless. You ever hear that?
Yeah, definitely. All the time.
It makes no sense. I'm homeless, not foodless. Food's easy to get. And so I started, when I actually had people realize people thought if you street perform, you must be homeless. And I was like, I was doing it for fun half the time. I used to do it in LA and Hollywood for fun.
I love busking. I used to busk in New York all the time.
Me and this other dude would just like jam out acoustic punk rock songs on Hollywood Boulevard.
Fun.
And we wouldn't make a lot of money. We'd make a handful of change, but we were doing it because we were yelling in public and just jamming out. Just like, and people out there loved it. But then you start to, experience what people think of you. And I was surprised to learn they conflate these things. So when I ended up working for this homeless shelter, as it turns out, most of these people were like, I would not like to be in that homeless shelter. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. And they want to be out in the streets. So how you solve that problem, I don't know. The point is, I'm bringing this up just to show you that whatever's been going on since the start of these protests, it's not over. On July 10th, Utah governor declares state of emergency due to civil unrest. That was not even 2 weeks ago. So Trump is deploying more law enforcement. And the law enforcement, my understanding, is about crime. But this is just stuff I'm pulling up to show you that, violent crime in Atlanta, Georgia, governor declares state of emergency, calls up National Guard. This was just about about 3 weeks ago. About 3 weeks ago. All this stuff has continually happened. Did you know that there was rioting and vandalism in Olympia?
I didn't even know where Olympia was until you told me earlier.
July 8th, stretch of vandalism, violence escalates in Olympia Tuesday evening into Wednesday. You Google this stuff, you pull it right up. It's been ongoing for some time. So we also have in Rochester, this is just from like 2 days ago, protesters shut down the interstate highway. I heard someone mentioning there have been shootings and crime is going up. I don't know a lot about what's going on, but mainstream media doesn't cover this stuff.
Nope. They don't want people to know that people are actually rioting out there.
I think they don't care. I think they don't care.
I think they're pushing a narrative that everything is Trump's fault. And if it doesn't fit that bill, then they don't go to that. And that's what I keep seeing. It's awfully biased as far as I'm concerned. Because I watch him, I listen to what he's actually saying.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. We do the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. If you want to catch the full show, tune in to this channel, subscribe, hit the like button, or check us out on iTunes and Spotify, and we will soon have this podcast up for free on all podcast platforms. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all in the next episode.